Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 821. Where is Jun Mo Xie? One had to know that this several thousand li of land was where the most pristine essence of Tian Fa forest was congregated. Not only did it have countless rare spirit herbs, various natural treasures could be found all over the place as well. The heaven-earth spiritual qi was even several times thicker than in other places. Furthermore, it was completely unsullied by human hands and was the most intact and perfect treasure trove of nature. If that weren't the case, a miraculous existence like the Nine Nether Pathway wouldn't have appeared so coincidentally in this place. The most unbearable thing was that they weren't even given the most basic explanation. The only reason they got was, the current Tian Fa is too weak. The meaning was simple: Tian Fa no longer had the qualifications to stand and sit alongside the other four greats. This kind of response was simply too intolerable. In that moment, all the beast kings exploded with rage. Chao Guofeng sighed and nodded lightly. Brother Lu, in that case, I wish you all well. Let us meet again in the future. Saint Emperor Lu looked expressionlessly at him and muttered, "Do as you wish." At this time, the 9 great beast kings had completely given up on the 3 holy lands and misty illusory manner. As one of the commanders of the mission this time, Chao Guofeng had actually acted as if he didn't see the unfair treatment that Tian Fa was receiving. It was obvious that the 4 powers had not come up with this in the moment. They had clearly plotted and discussed this ending long ago. The ferocious land of Tian Fa had already reached a point where it must be cut off. If Brother Lu has the chance to see Senior Mei, please help this old man convey my deepest apologies. Guofeng has truly let him down. Chao Guofeng's face fell and he seemed to sigh endlessly as he said that. However, Saint Emperor Lu was nearly angered to the point of vomiting blood when he heard this heartfelt regret. Snorting coldly, he spat sarcastically. "I won't dare. I'm sure that Emperor Mei will definitely feel incredibly gratified to hear of Saint Emperor Chao's present grandeur." The senior Mei that they were referring to was actually the first Tian Fa Saint Emperor from 700 years ago. In the war for seizing the heavens 1 year ago, Chao Guofeng had been watching the fight as a young generation disciple and had nearly been killed by a warrior of the strange races. It was Saint Emperor Mei who saved him, becoming his benefactor. Because there was such a matter, Chao Guofeng's actions today had caused Saint Emperor Lu to be even more enraged. Chao Guofeng did not reply. Sighing longly, he waved his hands. "Everyone, let's go." Without turning back, he took the lead and walked off. Millions of Xian beasts watched as they walked away, their eyes filled with rage and hatred. But without receiving the commands, none of them dared to make any rash movements. Just as the last person was about to walk out of the peripheries of where the beguiling mist had once been, that person turned around and asked coldly, "Where is Jun Mo Xie?" This person was the Saint Emperor expert from the elusive world of immortals, Jun Mo Xie. "Jun Mo Xie? Who's that?" Saint Emperor Lu asked with furrowed eyebrows. "Jun Mo Xie is the son-in-law of your Tian Fa. I've come here this time to tell him some important words," Jun Mo Xie said with a cold smile. "Brother Lu, Tian Fa's strength has declined far from its peak, and the way you do things has also turned interesting to actually bring in a human son-in-law. Speaking of which, this old man needs to congratulate you." "Human son-in-law?" Saint Emperor Lu furrowed his brows as he swept his eyes across the Xian beasts. Raising his voice, he asked with some displeasure, "Which one of you married a human? Little crane, little bear, Who married a human? As he looked around, he suddenly realized that one person was missing. Where's little May? Long Crane hurriedly came out and greeted with a sheepish smile, Elder. This, her. And this. Jun Mo Xie. He is, eldest sister's lover. But eldest sister has suffered some injuries. And she hasn't recovered yet. So, she didn't come. Little May's man? Saint Emperor Lu's face twitched in a strange manner. Finally, he revealed a bright smile. That lass is quite capable. To actually manage to trick a human to Tian Fa, that's quite something indeed. Where's the brat? Call him out for me to take a look. When these words came out, not were only Long Crane and the rest shocked. Even Jun Moxie was shocked. A marriage between Xian beasts and humans was forbidden for both sides. While the Saint Kings were unable to come out, Mei Xue Yan controlled the entire Tian Fa by herself. And that was the only reason no one messed with them yet. Now that Saint Emperor Lu and the rest were out, after hearing about this matter, they actually did not get angry at all. That was truly strange. At this time, the 19 people who had gone ahead stopped. Are you looking for me? What's the matter? The Xian beast horde parted as a person walked out slowly. He was dressed in clean white robes, and his face was like crowned jade. His figure was tall and slim, and his two eyes were arched in a half-smile as he asked. I wonder what Senior Saint Emperor is looking for this junior for. Behind him was the menacing Tiger King Earthcracker. On his left was the Lion King Careless Rock. On his right was the Snake King Green Hunter. They all stood not far from him and among the large group of transformed Xian beasts. His height and frame did not stand out at all. However, the moment he came out, everyone's gaze was instantly concentrated onto him. This was definitely an extraordinary person. The instant that all the experts saw him, their eyes shrunk. How strong were the eyes of these Saint Kings and Saint Emperors? With a single look, they could instantly see how extraordinary this youth was. Furthermore, this kid's cultivation had reached the venerable level. And the most shocking thing was his age. This youth's true age was definitely not over 20. A 20-year-old youth being able to reach the venerable realm was definitely an outstanding genius. From the first days until now, the Xian continent never lacked cultivation geniuses. But a genius who was capable of training to the venerable realm before the age of 20 was unforeseen. The future potential of this youth was practically unlimited. Just based on his current progress, he was almost certain to reach the realm of Saint King within 30 more years. Within 100 years, he could even reach the Saint Emperor realm. That was a speed that could cause even Saint Emperor experts to feel fearful of. In the instant that he walked out, the gazes of all 9 great beast kings also turned on to him. The 19 Saint King and Saint Emperor experts who'd walked some distance away actually turned around and walked back again. Their eyes were filled with great, complicated emotions as they looked at Jun Mo Xie. It was no wonder this kid had been able to become such a painful thorn in the neck of the 3 holy lands. Now that they saw him themselves, they were sure that this fellow was not just a thorn. He was simply a walking calamity. The hatred between them had already reached an irreconcilable level. When this kid reached his full potential, he would certainly be a much more horrifying existence than the 9 Nether 14th young master. After all, the 9 Nether 14th young master only wanted to rule and wouldn't kill unnecessarily. But this Jun Mo Xie was obviously not the same type of person as the 9 Nether 14th young master. Not only would he not shy away from killing, he wouldn't feel anything even if he massacred all of them. This was a god of slaughter in its growing stage. Whether it was for themselves or for the Holy Lands, they should eradicate him. If such a talent belonged to their Holy Lands, or if he came from some other faction that wasn't in conflict with them, not only would they not be jealous or wary of him, they would appreciate his talent greatly. Regardless of the price, they would try all means to recruit such a genius. But unfortunately, such a godly talent was their enemy. On top of that, it was an enemy whom they couldn't share the same sky with. Therefore, this genius must die. The experts of the four powers all had scrupulous looks in their eyes as they stared at Jun Mo Xie. These people were not normal saint-level experts. With a single look, they could instantly see the terrifying aspects of Jun Mo Xie. But when the 9 senior beast kings saw Jun Mo Xie, their thoughts were the complete opposite of those experts from the Holy Lands. Their eyes were almost shooting lights in their excitement. This kid is not bad. Before Saint Emperor Mei disappeared, he said this once: Tian Fa's millions will depend on the success and failure of one person. From the looks of it, this one person should be the youth before them. Saint Emperor Mei's strange words had always confounded the heads of the top-ranking beast kings of Tian Fa. Tian Fa Forest was a place for Xian beasts. So how would Tian Fa's millions end up depending on the success or failure of one person? No matter what, the fate of the forest shouldn't be decided by humans, much less one person. But now, when they saw Jun Mo Xie, the 9 senior beast kings finally understood the true meaning of those words. Most likely, it referred to this youth. The 9 senior beast kings also discovered Jun Mo Xie's true value at the same time. This guy was practically a living, ultimate slaughter demon in the middle of growing. Even more amazing was that he was already Tian Fa Forest's son-in-law. Furthermore, he's Xue Yan's husband. In other words, he was definitely their own. When the 9 senior beast kings heard that Mei Xue Yan had married a human, although they didn't show it on their faces, they were still enraged in their hearts. How could the 10,000 years old law of the Tian Fa forest be broken so easily? It was only because the enemy was here and they didn't want to throw the face of their own house in front of outsiders that they refrained from losing their temper on the spot. So before Jun Mo Xie came out, they had already decided that if they didn't like the kid, they would chase him out directly or even kill him swiftly to settle the matter. No matter what. Tian Fa Forest's reputation couldn't be destroyed by a single human. But the instant he walked out in such a calm manner, and within the first second that they saw him, all of them changed their minds. This kid is definitely a fortunate find for our Tian Fa Forest. He's the most likely savior of their present danger. No matter what, we have to keep him in Tian Fa and protect his life. Especially now, when the 9 of them had suffered a loss of strength, and the only successor of Tian Fa was heavily injured. A heaven-defying genius like that actually appeared in such a time. Once a genius like that grew to his full potential, it would definitely be enough to ensure the prosperity of Tian Fa for at least 1,000 years. So when the human experts turned around, the 9 senior beast kings also took a few steps forward. Like that, they slowly closed in towards Jun Mo Xie, using their combined strength to protect Jun Mo Xie. This subtle move of theirs caused the entire situation to change in a minute way. Everyone was harboring sinister motives, but no one dared to move rashly. In that moment, only Jun Mo Xie and Zhan Mu Bai were left in the middle. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 822. Despicable Surprise Attack. At the same time, the 9 great beast kings were lamenting silently in their hearts. This dang brat. You really shouldn't have come out at this juncture. Our strength is greatly diminished right now. Although the other side has also suffered some injuries, their combined power is more than twice greater than ours. Jun Mo Xie's current strength was comparatively much weaker, and if a fight broke out, he might not even be able to escape. As for the other Xian beasts, their strength was too weak. Although they had much greater numbers, it was hard to convert the numbers advantage into actual battle strength. Are you that Jun Mo Xie? Zhan Mubai's gaze grew deeper, and it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. I am. Senior, please speak. Jun Mo Xie said in a bland tone. At the same time, an indescribable sense of unease rose in his heart. He had already roughly guessed what this Saint Emperor was going to say. Most likely, it had something to do with the Dongfang, Duanmu, and Xikong families. This was the reason Jun Mo Xie had stood out so quickly. If those families suffered any irreparable damage because of him, he wouldn't be able to accept it. So this news was exactly what he needed the most now. Also, by coming out, he was declaring his status to the few senior beast kings. With how rowdy the commotion here was, if Jun Mo Xie didn't appear, it would cause others to think that he was a cowardly person. Xian beasts were very straightforward creatures. If he left this kind of impression in their minds, it would be very detrimental to the Jun family's position in Tian Fa forest. So although Jun Mo Xie did not wish to come out, he had no other choice but to. This seat is surnamed Shan, and I come from the elusive world of immortals. Zhan Mubai's sharp eyes fell on Jun Mo Xie's face as he said in a cold voice. Before I came here, Palace Lord Mo Wudao specially asked me to pass you a message. Fixing his eyes on Jun Mo Xie's face, he repeated clearly, Dongfang, Duanmu, Xikong, Blizzard Silver City, these four families are finished. Jun Mo Xie's heart dropped and his face paled in an instant. Sucking a deep breath of air in, he asked, this junior does not understand. When senior said, finished, what's the meaning of that? Finished overall? Or the entire family is finished? When he asked this, he was already trying his best to control himself. However, a hint of chilly killing intent could still be heard in his voice. Even Zhan Mubai standing across him felt a somewhat cold sensation when facing this killing intent, causing him to feel an odd sense of danger. As he heard Jun Mo Xie's question, he chuckled disdainfully. What's the difference between the family being finished or the family being finished overall? It's the same thing. Senior might have been in seclusion for too long, so he doesn't even understand such basic words. Jun Mo Xie's eyes blazed as he snorted in a heavy tone. If the family is completely finished, it means that they've been annihilated, and everyone is dead. But if the family is finished, it can mean that their businesses are gone, or their reputation is lost. There might not even be many people dead. Zhan Mubai's face stiffened, but he still forced out a strange laughter. There's no way this seat is interested enough to know about these things. If you're curious, you can go out and take a look for yourself. Wouldn't everything be clear then? At this moment, he finally grew serious. Because when he met eyes with Jun Mo Xie, he realized that his powerful spiritual attack was actually unable to move him. This discovery caused his killing intent to soar to the skies. This kid is dangerous. Even if he had to throw his reputation away today, he must eliminate him. Many thanks to Senior for the reminder. This junior has nearly forgotten that he can still go out. Jun Mo Xie said somewhat sarcastically. A trace of anger appeared in Zhan Mubai's calm eyes, which he retracted swiftly. Looking at Jun Mo Xie, he continued in a light voice. Apart from Palace Lord Mo's message, this seat also has a few words to tell you. Junior is listening attentively to Senior's teachings. Jun Mo Xie said coldly. The Chen Chong whom your master killed is actually my disciple. He was this seat's only disciple, and a personal disciple as well. He was the only successor to this old man's legacy and has been so for hundreds of years. When this old man passes away, he was supposed to take over everything. However, he had been killed and left without a corpse because of your master. Zhan Mubai's eyes flashed with a hint of pain. Several hundred years of a master and disciple relationship ended in the white-haired elderly man sending off the disciple. Therefore, I want to meet your master. His expression grew dark as he lifted his head with sorrow. But that master of yours is actually just a cowardly turtle, hiding away and not daring to come out. So if I want to see him, I'll need you to help me pass him a message. Jun Mo Xie scoffed darkly in his heart. That mysterious master is nothing but a made-up character. If you told me, it's the same as telling him. Smiling lightly, he said, Has Senior been looking for my master? When has Master ever been afraid of anyone? He's merely more busy these days and rarely shows himself. Senior can directly tell me. I'll let him know. Good. Zhan Mubai laughed aloud and praised. Indeed, heroes come from the young generation. Heaven-Earth Spirit Lock. In that instant, the winds and clouds suddenly changed. Zhan Mubai pointed his white and slender finger at Jun Mo Xie. And a powerful energy instantly appeared around him, immobilizing him. The range of this cage wasn't very big, but it clung tightly to Jun Mo Xie's body. It was at most only the size of his body. But it was precisely this aspect that displayed its amazing intricacies. This was a kind of energy that belonged to a kind of heaven and earth law. It far exceeded the boundaries of the world cage. The sudden appearance of this anomaly was something that nobody had expected. Jun Mo Xie hadn't expected it. The Beast Kings hadn't accepted it. And even the experts from the Three Holy Lands and Misty Illusory Manor didn't expect it. Because this was simply too unbelievable. Who would have thought that just as both sides were still discussing cordially that one side would suddenly attack? Furthermore, it was an esteemed Saint Emperor sneak attacking a mere venerable level junior younger than 20 years old. This had already exceeded the boundaries of despicable, it was straight up shameless. This concerned the face of a Saint Emperor the reputation of the utmost peak-level expert in Xian continent. Please remember to tell your master this. He killed my only disciple, so I killed his only disciple as well. We'll see if he continues acting like a cowardly turtle. Zhan Mubai roared, and all of a sudden, he opened his palm and slapped towards him. A condensed palm wind slammed towards Jun Mo Xie's chest, roaring like an enraged dragon rising out of the ocean, carrying a strong aura of annihilative power. If Jun Mo Xie was in the yin-yang escapes void state, not to mention one Zhan Mubai, even 100 or 10,000 Zhan Mubais would not be able to harm him at all. But right now, he was completely helpless. That sneaky old bastard had directly used the Heaven-Earth Spirit Lock on him while he was in his normal physical state. It was exactly like how it was with Mei Xue Yan's world cage back then, even though Jun Mo Xie could have dodged the attack normally. In a situation where he couldn't even activate yin-yang escape, he would be in a vulnerable position. What Zhan Mubai was using now was the even more higher-ranked Heaven-Earth Spirit Lock. The 9 great beast kings roared with rage and rushed over. But it was too late. The moment the palm came out, a shrill whistling sound rang out through Tian Fa forest. Everywhere the palm wind passed by, faint azure smoke would appear in the air. The strength of this palm was exceedingly great. And Jun Mo Xie simply could not dodge. Because right now, he couldn't even move a finger. Jun Mo Xie chuckled bitterly in his heart. To think that I, Jun Mo Xie, would actually die in such a ridiculous fashion. But this was something that couldn't be helped. Who would have thought that an esteemed saint emperor would behave so shamelessly? He had been on guard the entire time and had only relaxed for an instant when he heard Zhan Mu by asking him to relay a message. Because since he wanted Jun Mo Xie to relay a message, he wouldn't do anything to him. How would a dead man be able to relay any messages? But who would have expected that Zhan Mu Bai would attack immediately after saying that? The despicableness of his heart was simply horrifying. Right at that moment, a sharp scream rang out, and Jun Mo Xie suddenly felt a soft body pounce in front of him, or rather, it pounced against the heaven-earth spirit lock that restricted him, hugging him tightly with the heaven-earth spirit lock between them. A flash of green and a stirring scent rose into Jun Mo Xie's nostrils and eyes. Stunned, he screamed soundlessly like a madman and began pouring his newly attained purple qi into the body in front of him. Because he recognized this person. Snake King, Green Hunter. In that critical moment, she was the person that was standing closest to Jun Mo Xie. Ever since he came out, she had been sticking closely by his side, standing wordlessly beside him. At this time, it was also she who threw her body in front of him, blocking this life-seizing strike for him without a single word. Ever since they returned from Silver City and Jun Mo Xie announced his wedding with Mei Xue Yan to the entire Tian Fa, and the Jun family showed their sincerity in the matter, Green Hunter had basically not said another word to Jun Mo Xie anymore. She became more quiet and introverted, and even when she was with the other Beast Kings, she rarely talked much, which was a huge difference from her usual behavior. But it was her, in this critical moment of life and death, who stepped out silently. In the instant that she threw her body in front of Jun Mo Xie, she arched her back outwards as much as possible, hoping to increase the distance between her front and Jun Mo Xie's front, afraid that the terrifying energy from that palm would spread through her to harm him. In the next moment, Jun Mo Xie felt Green Hunter's fragile body shake violently, and with a violent pu sound, a mouthful of fresh blood sprayed across his face. Following that, a surge of pure energy continued through her body, passing through her frail back, out her chest, and smashing fiercely against his own chest. With a loud crack, 4 or 5 of Jun Mo Xie's rib bones snapped. His internal organs was also jolted violently, and with a violent cough, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. A bunch of long, black hair fell lifelessly and covered his face, slowly drifting down. Green Hunter's body collapsed weakly, and she looked at him with her large, sad eyes twinkling with tears. Her face did not have any painful expression, nor was there any acceptance for death. She simply looked peacefully at Jun Mo Xie's face. From the start to the end, she did not say a single word, nor make a single sound. She simply looked at him silently, before finally closing her eyes. A soft smile appeared on the corner of her lips, gentle and peaceful. It was as if she had confirmed that he was fine, and she could leave without any worries. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 823. Why Love? In that moment, Jun Mo Xie suddenly felt an intense sensation as if his heart had been torn apart. His hands trembled intensely like a beggar's, and in that moment, even his soul convulsed with pain, and he grew confused. He didn't know why Green Hunter would do that. Only at the end did he see from Green Hunter's eyes that she was relieved after seeing that he was fine. That was why she closed her eyes and allowed her life force to recede in a peaceful manner. Jun Mo Xie, who'd finally freed himself using a burst of purple chi, actually stopped moving. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. Why was it like that? It was love. Perhaps only love could cause a young maiden to disregard the price, even risking her life to protect someone. But why was it like this? Why did she fall in love with me? When did it begin? Why didn't I know at all? Why was I so insensitive? Jun Mo Xie looked at the frail figure in his arms with shock, his heart and mind lost and confused. He was only cognizant of the fact that he was pouring an immeasurable amount of heaven-earth spiritual chi into her body in a crazed manner. In fact, he'd completely forgotten that his body had also sustained significant injuries. Xue Yan, who was cultivating inside the Hongjun Pagoda, suddenly realized with great shock that the fifth level of the Hongjun Pagoda had suddenly opened with a boom, following which, the entire pagoda began rotating, and countless mysterious purple chi surged out like a dragon, streaming outside continuously. It looks like Jun Mo Xie was fighting against somebody again. And it should be an extremely strong enemy. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a need to utilize so much spiritual chi from the Hongjun Pagoda. I wonder, who's his opponent this time? Will he be in danger? At this moment, she suddenly realized something. Ever since Jun Mo Xie rose to prominence, every single one of his fights was against someone much stronger. In contrast, he hasn't fought against anyone on the same cultivation level as him. What a freak. Xue Yan neeped lightly as she praised. Relaxing her heart again, she waited patiently for him to come in. It wasn't too late to ask him at that time. Xue Yan, who had always been wise, simply calmed her heart down and concentrated on cultivation again. Her sense of danger dropped, and she actually overlooked that Jun Mo Xie was currently living in Tian Fa forest. For there to be a fight in Tian Fa forest, and him needing the aid of the Hongjun Pagoda, the battle situation was definitely very dire. Right now, on the outside, heaven-changing events were taking place. All the spiritual chi from the Hongjun Pagoda was transferred into Green Hunter's body to heal and stabilize her injuries. He actually didn't keep a single bit to take care of her own injuries. After suffering the attack, the eruption of purple chi from the Hongjun Pagoda had directly broken the heaven-earth spirit lock. Unexpectedly, the shameless Zhan Mu Bai did not continue to pursue the kill. The old bastard had to take care of himself since the 9 great beast kings had joined hands to attack him. But at this moment, Jun Mo Xie did not have the time to think about whatever Zhan Mu Bai 1, or Zhan Mu He 2. All his efforts were placed on the girl in his arms. Why? He kept repeating the question over and over again. Why love? Jun Mo Xie didn't know the answer to the question, and neither would Xue Yan. Perhaps even Green Hunter wouldn't be able to say it clearly either. Love never had a why. There were no reasons, no cause. Love was love. Some people would only meet once, but could instantly fall deeply in love with each other. There were similarly no reasons for that. Perhaps because the Snake King had never left Tian Fa forest previously, and she hadn't ever met any other teenage girls. The transformed beast kings were all rough and stalwart looking as well. Jun Mo Xie's appearance was an anomaly. In the same way Xue Yan accompanied him for tens of thousands of li, traveling together and teasing him, finally turning from enemies into friends. Their marriage, love and alliance was all witnessed by one person, Green Hunter. How could she not be moved after witnessing the romance between Jun Mo Xie and Xue Yan? After all, how many girls could resist the charms of a man like Jun Mo Xie? However, her feelings for him had never been expressed before. Jun Mo Xie may be a very outstanding man, and a man who could move her heart. But she was still her eldest sister's man. She did not have the right to intrude, and she even more so couldn't. When one truly loved a person, they would wish for that person to be happy. Thus, Green Hunter chose to stay silent. But feelings were like fine wine. The longer they were kept away, the stronger it would become. Perhaps, it was as they said, love was love. Even if it was a love that she had ultimately never confessed. From the start to the end, there weren't any of the intimate connections of lovers, or the sweet whisperings under the moonlight. In fact, there wasn't even any time for the two of them to be alone. Not even for a moment. However, she'd still paid the price for this love with her life, without any regrets. When one loved another, they would want to do things for them, without any hopes for reciprocation. When she saw that the person she loved was in danger, she didn't even consider before deciding to use her life to defend him. She did not have the time to think whether she could or could not block. And what would happen after she blocked it? That move of hers was actually more like an instinctive reaction. She simply wanted to protect the man she loved. That was all. Life's most feared debt was the debt of the heart, and the hardest thing to bear was a love of a beauty. It turned out that, unknowingly, he'd already owed so much. Jun Mo Xie's heart was turbulent with emotions. Angry roars rose into the sky all around, and the 9 great beast kings all struck out at the same time. Big Bear, Long Crane and the other beast kings all roared in anger, rushing over. They no longer cared that their strength compared to the saint-level experts was too weak. Roaring fiercely, all of them charged forward desperately. At the same time, right after that attack, Jun Moxie found himself facing the combined attacks of 9 great beast kings at the same time. And because of the heaven-earth spirit lock being broken forcefully, he had to endure some backlash. All these factors combined resulted in him suffering heavy injuries in almost the first instant. He was a Saint Emperor level expert, and his strength was extraordinary. The 9 senior beast kings' strength had also been greatly weakened. But even if he was at his peak condition, he wouldn't dare to clash forcefully against 9 weakened beast kings like that. Moreover, he'd suffered some injuries in the fight against the 9 Nether 14th young master. In the end, his sneak attack failed, and he even received a backlash. So after that attack, he fell into a tragic circumstance. Fortunately, the other 19 experts had rushed back in time, barely saving him. However, all the Xian beasts in Tian Fa had gone completely crazy. That single palm of his had roused the anger of the entire Tian Fa forest. Countless Xian beasts, whether they be running, crawling, or flying, all charged towards them like an unceasing tide. In the blink of an eye, the 20 experts had turned into a small island amidst the ocean of Xian beasts. Jun Moxie's mouth and nose were filled with blood, and his injuries were exceedingly heavy. However, he still turned to look hatefully at where Jun Mo Xie and the green-dressed Snake King were huddled together on the ground, seemingly completely lifeless. He had complete confidence in his own attack. That palm of his, under the condition that he'd used the heaven-earth spirit lock first, was more than enough to kill even 2 4th-level venerables. Although he'd received a backlash from a strange energy, he still had 100% confidence. He was completely sure that those 2 were already dead without a doubt. That kid is already dead. Let's retreat. What's the point of fighting against these beasts? Zhan Mubai looked at Chao Guofeng and said hurriedly. Chao Guofeng called out loudly, "All right. Everyone, follow me." A brilliant light flashed in his hands, and a strange-looking sword appeared in his hand. With a powerful slash, a series of painful cries rang out. Two other Saint Emperors who hadn't been injured as much followed alongside him as he killed his way out, carving a path of blood behind him. Long Crane raised his voice and roared with all his might, "Tian Fa Xian beasts, hear my order. Everyone attack and kill those 20 bastards at all costs." In his rage, he'd even forgotten that he was not the highest authority around here and directly gave the command. At this time, Saint Emperor Lu actually heard an exceedingly frail yet heavy voice in his ears, "Don't clash forcefully. Let them go. We must not fight forcefully, we can't bear the loss." Saint Emperor Lu shuddered with a start and turned around, seeing Jun Mo Xie, who was on the ground looking at him with unblinking eyes. So this little brat isn't dead, he thought with relief. As long as he wasn't dead, everything will be fine. At this time, the 20 experts had already jumped onto a large tree and were escaping in a direction in high speed. The entire Tian Fa forest was in a frenzy. Every single tree was filled with tens of venomous snakes, some even crawling with hundreds and thousands of them. The sky was covered in a blanket of flying xian beasts, covering tens of li. And this radius was still growing. All of them were attacking recklessly, without a care for their lives. They were doing everything they can, attacking with everything. However, the 20 Saint King and Saint Emperor experts were all peak-level experts. They formed a triangular formation, and sword lights flashed crazily as they rushed in one direction without pausing. They didn't even care how many opponents they cut down. They only concentrated on escaping. Peak experts who only want to escape would be hard to suppress with just numerical advantage. Seeing countless of his little brothers and sisters and juniors charging forward, giving all they had and then turning into a pile of corpses, Saint Emperor Lu's heart was racked with pain. After a short hesitation, he decided to take Jun Mo Xie's advice. Raising his voice, he shouted, "Open a path. Let them go." Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 824. All Out Tian Fa. From the situation now, everyone could see very clearly. These people were all undoubtedly powerful experts. But all of them had varying levels of injuries on them. Based on the current situation, it was the same odds as when they came to deal with the 9-14th young master. So the battle strategy that worked against the 9-14th young master would similarly work against them. Attrition. If it was solo combat, Tian Fa practically did not have any qualifications to be their opponent. But this was Tian Fa Forest, the main camp of all Xian beasts. As long as they forced the fight while disregarding sacrifices, slowly using the beast ocean tactic to overwhelm them, even saints could be exhausted to death eventually. At least, they could force half of those saints to stay behind permanently. But the price of such a victory was the lives of hundreds of thousands to millions of Xian beasts. Perhaps even the beast kings will be buried alongside them. A battle like this was not something that Tian Fa could bear. Of course, the misty illusory manor and the Holy Lands would not be able to bear the losses too. This was why Jun Mo Xie's heart ached and he hurriedly stopped them the moment he realized what was happening. Right now in his heart, these Xian beasts were akin to his own family. How could he watch while they make such a huge sacrifice? Besides, the misty illusory manor and the Holy Lands still had himself, Xue Yan, and other experts to deal with. Furthermore, there was still the 14th young master, the enemy of his enemy. If too many Xian beasts died or were injured now, it wouldn't be worth it. Furthermore, in his heart, he had a different thinking. His own debt of blood must be retaken by himself bit by bit. But when Saint Emperor Lu called out for them to open a path, the both sides had already devolved into an unredeemable level. The incoming Eagle King commanded an entire group of eagles to dive down, adopting the method to harm oneself first before harming the opponent. Several thousand eagles dove from the sky, screeching shrilly. When they got near the 20 experts, they actually all self-detonated. The power of several thousand rank 7 Xian eagles self-detonating together was heaven-shocking. It directly cleared a large piece of ground in the middle of Tian Fa forest. Even though the 20 peak-level experts had deep cultivation and powerful defense, they were still blasted flying by the forceful explosion. In the air, the Eagle King swooped menacingly, commanding wave after wave of Xian eagles to dive down and self-detonate. One had to say that the Eagle King was a truly ruthless fellow. Since the start of the battle, he already knew that their strength was not enough to kill their opponents, and most likely, their casualties would far exceed expectations. So, he directly commanded them to self-detonate. Although this might seem cruel, it was a strategy that instead would result in lesser casualties. And it had the strongest attacking power as well, which could deal the most damage to their enemies. If the frenzied swamping attacks were completely meaningless and it was just pointlessly wasting lives, even if more Xian beasts poured forward and died, it wouldn't have too much effect. In that case, since they were going to die regardless, they might as well directly self-detonate to damage the enemy. When Long Crane saw Eagle King's strategy, his eyes lit up, and with a flash in his eyes, he followed suit and commanded countless high-level Xian cranes to dive forward as well and self-detonate. Using their life as a price, going all out against the strongest champions of the human race. The sound of powerful explosions rang out continuously, and the grounds itself cracked, and the deepest part of Tian Fa forest was transformed into a sea of blood and fire. The 20 experts were currently in an exceptionally wretched state. Each of them, under the unceasing fire of countless Xian beasts, had gained much greater injuries. With their cultivation, if it was just 1 or 2 Xian beasts self-detonating in front of them, it wouldn't be anything at all and wouldn't cause any damage. But the several thousand Xian beasts self-detonating together. Even Saint Emperors couldn't withstand such concentrated bombardment for long. Just at this point, a bright light flashed in the distance, and several voices rang out in the air. Stop! Everyone is on the same side. Why go to such lengths? We can always talk things over. Several tens more figures rushed over from the distance. It was actually the reinforcements from the 4 powers. Who's on the same side as you? You bastards are worse than beasts. Talk things over my ass. Long Crane's 2 eyes had turned blood red like a pair of lanterns. He was just about to give the order to kill whoever blocked them when a figure flashed and Saint Emperor Lu appeared in front of him. Raising his voice, he commanded, "Open a path. Let them go." The commotion just now was too noisy, and although Long Crane heard the same command, he pretended not to. But now that he'd arrived in person, Long Crane would not dare to pretend he hadn't heard anything. However, he still growled with rage. Why? They killed brother-in-law. We must avenge him. Idiot. Your brother-in-law hasn't died yet. Saint Emperor Lu slapped him on the back of the head. You're really capable. Ha! You can even defy my orders. Long Crane eyes widened and he rubbed his head. Really? Then what about Green Hunter? That lass? Saint Emperor Lu's face darkened. From the way he saw it, it was already a miracle that Jun Mo Xie had managed to survive. Snake King Green Hunter, no matter what, there should be no more hope. Long Crane's eyes dimmed, and two large drops of tears rolled down his eyes as he spoke in a pained voice. Among our current generation of beast kings, we only have this one younger sister. We just have this one little sister. And she. At this time, the people of the four powers had already gathered together. The original 20 people looked exceptionally wretched. Their robes were shredded and torn, and their bodies were covered in blood. Their faces were pale, and two of them were even missing an arm each. Large gashes could be seen all over them, and quite a few of these wounds even revealed the bones underneath. In a short time, several million Tian Fa Xian beasts had also gathered. The sky was completely black, with flying Xian beasts blotting the sun for as far as the eye could see. Millions of eyes were fixed on this group of people, causing a chilly feeling to flood their hearts. The ground was like a moving carpet of all kinds of Xian beasts, squeezed densely together. The most frenzied bunch was the snake tribe. Some huge venomous snakes were coiled around the large trees, their tongues flickering threateningly. Seeing the sheer numbers of Xian beasts, even though they were all peak experts, everyone could not help but to suck in a breath of cold air. This was the first time that they began to wonder if they could leave Tian Fa forest alive. Right at this time, a shrill cry rang out, and the densely packed group of Xian beasts parted and created a path. A burly figure stood atop the back of a huge white crane. Looking up, it was actually Saint Emperor Lu. He stared coldly at them, and said in a bland tone, "All of you leave now. From today onwards, our Tian Fa will separate from Xian continent and be an independent family. In the future, whoever comes in here will be an enemy. I hope that everyone will not come here to seek your own suffering." Chao Guofeng and the rest breathed a sigh of relief, hurriedly clasping their fists, and after saying a few formal and insincere words, they left in a wretched manner. Seeing these humans leaving, all the Xian beasts' eyes blazed with anger. In fact, they began to grow unhappy with this leader they hadn't seen in a few hundred years. They killed brother-in-law and Snake King. Why are we letting them go? We are entirely capable of fecking those bastards to death. Why do we have to let them leave? Big Bear stomped out with red eyes. He'd already transformed into his original form, and his huge body stood straight up. All the hair on his body was as straight as a porcupine's, and he actually pointed his fat finger at Saint Emperor Lu's nose as he roared angrily, "When has our Tian Fa ever been so weak? Why? Why?" Seeing the unhappiness in the Beast King's eyes, Saint Emperor Lu shook his head with a bitter smile as he explained in a helpless way. "Let's not mention killing those bastards and how many lives we would need to sacrifice to do that. The most important thing is that your brother-in-law hasn't even died yet. Letting those people go were his intentions as well." "Brother-in-law isn't dead? Really?" Big Bear and the rest roared with joy and ran off with great clamor. Saint Emperor Lu smiled lightly. "Looks like that human youngster's popularity is pretty good, even that bear is so convinced by him. Wait, that bear actually dared to point his finger at my face and question me, forcing me to explain." Saint Emperor Lu only thought of this point now and was prepared to settle scores with Big Bear. But that fellow had already completely disappeared. How was that fellow going to look for his brother-in-law? As soon as he heard that Jun Mo Xie was fine, his heart relaxed and he disappeared like a puff of smoke. Big Bear was currently sweating buckets of cold sweat as he ran through the forest. That was Tian Fa's true, unrivaled ruler. The Saint Emperor ah. My God. How did I get the guts to point at his nose and question him? Dear heavens ah. It wasn't easy for this brother to finally get a wife. I can't let her turn into a widow so soon. A group of beast kings rushed over and surrounded Jun Mo Xie, who was hugging Green Hunter in the same position as before. His hand was still pressed against Green Hunter's back. When the beast kings came over, he only opened his eyes to indicate that he was fine. Little fellow, how are you feeling? Are your injuries serious? Seeing that he wasn't getting up, Saint Emperor Lu squatted down and asked nervously. Jun Mo Xie drew a breath lightly, and he instantly felt a piercing pain in several places on his chest. Smiling bitterly, he said, I'm fine. It's just a few broken ribs and I'll be fine in a few days. But the Snake King, it's really quite serious. What? Little Snake King. That lass, she's not dead either? In that moment, Saint Emperor Lu and the rest were truly shocked. That was the full strength strike of a Saint Emperor. Although Zhan Mubai hadn't been able to unleash his full strength because of his injury, it was at least over 50% of his peak strength. As for Snake King, she was at most at the peak of the superior supreme realm, and was not even at the venerable realm. The difference in level between the two was simply ludicrously huge. It was already very good that she hadn't been slapped into a pile of mushed flesh on the spot. But from what Jun Mo Xie was saying, that last Green Hunter actually hadn't died. This was something that the 9 senior beast kings could not understand even if they racked their brains thinking. Could it be that human bastard actually went easy on them? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 825. Thoroughly Enraged. Saint Emperor Lu stretched out his hands with disbelief and placed it against the Snake King's wrist. As he detected her pulse, his eyes widened with disbelief. What's going on? This lass's internal organs actually weren't even shattered. She was just jolted pretty badly. But, how is this possible? Her bones are shattered, but her internal injuries are so light. This is too inconceivable. The other 8 senior beast kings were also speechless with shock. The scene before them was something that they couldn't understand no matter how they thought about it. Judging from Zhan Mubai's previous demeanor, it wasn't possible for him to go easy on the kids. Not mentioning going easy, he was practically going all out when he made the attack. A small little Snake King actually took a full-strength hit from a Saint Emperor, and didn't die. Her bones were clearly shattered, and her internal injuries were exceedingly heavy. However, Green Hunter's 5 viscera and 6 bowel were only jolted and didn't seem to be harmed. That meant that although she might become crippled for the rest of her life as a result, but her life would not be in any danger. This was an extremely inconceivable and illogical outcome. Jun Mo Xie chuckled bitterly to himself. Is just surviving a very formidable thing? The two of us had combined our strengths to block the attack. This elder brother was using the primal chaos purple chi. Ah! Following that, there was an ocean's worth of primal chaos purple chi to sustain her life. If she really died, that would be the strange thing. However, that shattered backbone of hers is going to be troublesome. One had to say that the situation earlier had been too exceedingly close. If Green Hunter hadn't blocked the attack for him, young Master Jun would be dead without a doubt. This action of Green Hunter's had created a field for the opposing energies to clash. Against the oncoming attack, Jun Mo Xie had poured a huge amount of primal chaos purple chi into her meridians in a short instant. Although Jun Mo Xie's cultivation was not very high, and his mastery of the purple chi was low, That was also depending on who he was being compared to. Against saint-level experts, his venerable level cultivation was naturally not much to look at. But Green Hunter was only at the superior supreme realm, and she had also broken through not long ago. Her foundations hadn't even been stabilized yet. But young Master Jun's primal chaos purple chi, whether in quality or quantity, had far exceeded Green Hunter's capabilities to endure. Such a heavy influx of energy was not something that she could handle. If not for the strike on her back, just the flow of primal chaos purple chi in her body would cause her to explode. But just at the most critical point, the attack behind her arrived. The two opposing energies clashed forcefully inside her body. The Saint Emperor's centuries of painstaking cultivation was still incredibly powerful. Right now, Jun Mo Xie's primal chaos purple chi was only at its beginning stage. It might be superior in quality, but the quantity difference was simply too ridiculously far apart. It was naturally not a match. But the primal chaos purple chi naturally had its own miraculous effects, and the scene of a completely one-sided defeat did not happen. Because of that, Green Hunter's life had managed to be preserved. But still, it was only enough to keep her life. Her spine, her skeleton, all of them had been shattered by this one palm. Furthermore, some of her internal organs had been jolted too hard. If not considering the negative side effects of the Saint King pills. The injuries that Green Hunter currently suffered were even worse than Xue Yan's back then. The seriousness of her injuries. SSI. This lass's injuries are so heavy. How come she hasn't reverted to her original form yet? Saint Emperor Lu could not help but to gasp with surprise again after checking her injuries thoroughly and finding yet another anomaly. Jun Mo Xie pursed his lips and smiled bitterly. This young master used such a large amount of primal chaos purple chi to surround and protect her body. Even if she wants to return to her original form, she has to be capable of doing that first right. In Saint Emperor Lu's eyes, the fact that Green Hunter had taken such a great damage and still survive was undoubtedly an extremely inconceivable miracle. One had to know that that was an attack of at least an 80% strength from a Saint Emperor. Truthfully, her injuries had entered an extremely critical level. She couldn't even be moved at all. Right now, Jun Mo Xie was already using all his abilities, and even borrowed huge amounts of primal chaos purple chi inside the Hongjun pagoda to barely preserve the last bit of her life. At this point, it was difficult to say what the end result would be. Young Master Jun didn't have too much confidence that he would be able to save her life. Saint Emperor Lu was still standing there and gasping with amazement when suddenly, an even more shocking scene appeared. Under the gaping eyes of the crowd, Jun Mo Xie lightly waved his hands, and the Snake King in his grasp suddenly disappeared mysteriously. Saint Emperor Lu blinked with shock as he looked at the youth before him. All of a sudden, he got the feeling that this youngster had an endless trove of secrets in him. Just this action of making a full-grown person disappear in the blink of an eye was simply impossible to comprehend. However, the experienced him did not say anything, only looking deeply at Jun Mo Xie. To Saint Emperor Lu, the more mysterious and the deeper his foundations were, the greater his accomplishments would be in the future. That also meant that his home, Tian Fa Forest, would be better safeguarded. Therefore, this Tian Fa Saint Emperor who'd lived for close to 1,000 years, not only did not ask, he even hoped that Jun Mo Xie had more secret trump cards. The bigger the better. He was Tian Fa's son-in-law, and Xue Yan's man. That alone was enough reason. Furthermore, he and the others did not have much time remaining. To the current Tian Fa forest, having a talented figure like Jun Mo Xie protect them was what they needed the most right now. For Jun Mo Xie to display his miraculous skill in front of everyone, it was also a matter that couldn't be helped for him. With the Snake King's condition turning increasingly frail, if she wasn't taken into the Hongjun Pagoda soon, she might not be able to hang on. It just so happened that she couldn't be moved at right now. Comparing between the disadvantages of both actions, he naturally decided to disregard the opinions of the crowd and directly took her into the Hongjun Pagoda to recover. Back then, although Xue Yan's injuries were critical and her cultivation had dropped to the bottom, but because she'd transformed back into her original form, she was still capable of staying conscious. But the Snake King had already fallen into unconsciousness. She could not sense anything at all. Her current condition was what his previous world would describe as a vegetative state or even worse. At least, people in a coma still had some cognition of things around them, albeit viewing them in a dreamlike state. But Green Hunter did not even have this. Her current condition was bad to an extreme level. Whether she would recover was completely a thing that was dependent on external aid. Her current body could not even respond at all. So Jun Mo Xie's immediate action was to pull her into the Hongjun Pagoda and use the purest heaven-earth spiritual qi to slowly nourish her body. Only when she'd regained some consciousness would the matter of healing be discussed. Another point was that young Master Jun's own injuries had worsened to an incredible state as well. Only, Jun Mo Xie's method of healing was something that caused Saint Emperor Lu, this Tian Fa Saint Emperor who'd seen and experienced many things, to once again gasp with disbelief. There were simply too many unbelievable surprises today, to the point where his heart was slightly frail. Young Master Jun simply sat up, causing his broken ribs to emanate loud cracking sounds. It was obvious without thinking how painful this was. Even the naturally physically strong Tian Fa Xian beasts could not help but to clench their teeth and cringe from the sound. Surprisingly, this young Master Jun did not seem to take this pain seriously. He sucked in a deep breath of air, and his body actually swelled up like a balloon. The broken ribs magically moved back to their original positions. The only thing was that because his body had swelled up so suddenly, there was a gap between the bones. Jun Mo Xie clenched his teeth forcefully and all of a sudden, the engorged body shrunk abruptly and returned to its original size. The broken bones were also directly reconnected just like that. The pain from the sudden reattachment of all the broken bones together was so intense that he very nearly fainted. However, he managed to forcefully endure it. In an instant, large amounts of bean-sized sweat appeared on his forehead and gathered together into a small stream. Following that, young Master Jun carefully wrapped the newly attached bones with primal chaos purple qi. Finally, he stretched his body, realizing that he hadn't endured the pain for nothing. As long as there weren't any violent movements, there shouldn't be any problems with the bones. Although it was like that, Jun Mo Xie's handsome face had become as pale as a sheet of paper. Sweat streamed down his face, but from the start to the end, his expression hadn't changed at all. It was still the same cold calmness. In fact, even his eyes didn't so much as flicker. The only thing was that the severe pain had triggered the deep and intense killing intent in his body. Whether it was Zhan Mu Bai's despicable attack or those strange words he brought with him, all of them caused the deeply hidden and densest killing intent in his body to be roused up. This was yet another debt of blood. The blood debt between him and them was already dense beyond estimation. Zhan Mu Bai passed him the message because Mo Wu Dao hoped that it would lure him out of Tian Fa, making it easier to deal with him. That was not a wrong move. However, that sudden attack by himself was an impulsive decision made by himself. The idea itself was truly not bad. Although doing that would destroy the reputation of one Saint Emperor, It would rid the three holy lands of a huge enemy forever. No matter how one looked at it, this was a wonderful trade. In fact, Jun Moxie's reputation might not even be hurt much. After all, he was only taking revenge for his disciple. From a wider point of view, he was even sacrificing his reputation to protect the three holy lands and removing a potential powerful threat for them. That would in fact be a praiseworthy act. It was a pity that Jun Mo Xie hadn't actually died. Jun Moxie's sacrifice had become completely meaningless, and it would in fact make his reputation even worse. More importantly, that despicable attack had completely aroused Jun Mo Xie's vengeful heart. He couldn't have imagined that his one strike had finally released a killing demon that had been keeping itself in check for a long time. The lawless personality of a completely enraged evil monarch. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 826. On the verge of death? Let me take a look. The moment Xue Yan was severely injured, Jun Mo Xie wanted to deal with the three holy lands immediately. Although he could barely cause significant damage to the three holy lands with his strength, but with his undetectable yin-yang escape and heaven-defying power of the five elements, he was definitely capable of completely destroying their sect if he caught them unprepared. Let this bunch of hypocrites who preach about the sake of the world become stray dogs. But he remembered that it was Xue Yan's lifelong wish to ensure the victory of the war for seizing the heavens. Jun Mo Xie could not bring himself to destroy her hope. And even more so, he did not wish to really become the criminal who had destroyed the peace of the continent. So Jun Mo Xie chose to endure it and retreat, moving the entire Jun family into Tian Fa. First, it would prevent them from sustaining losses. Secondly, it could prevent conflict. It left everything to be determined only after the war for seizing the heavens. To anyone else, this retreat into Tian Fa forest was a well-executed change in battle strategy. But only Jun Mo Xie knew that his retreat this time was really indignant. Jun Mo Xie had long left Tian Fa forest as the final place he would be retiring into. But he had intended to go into seclusion after he had become the strongest in continent. And not like this, escaping into Tian Fa forest to avoid his enemies. These were two completely different concepts. But this incident of Jun Moxie's sudden attack had truly thoroughly enraged Jun Mo Xie. He had almost lost his life. Green Hunter's life was hanging by a thread, with no certainty of recovery. No matter what, it was impossible for him to accept this sort of disastrous aftermath. First it was Xue Yan. Next it was Green Hunter. Then if he continued to give in, then who would be next? I have already given way. But you guys still insist on not sparing us. So why should I still give in? When dealing with a vicious dog, if one did not hurt it or beat it to death, then it would continue to bite like crazy without giving up. Only by beating it to death or hurting it so much that it would run at the sight of you could you finish it, once and for all. So Jun Mo Xie was preparing to strike back. And it would be a utterly bloody one. But he did not reveal all these thoughts. He only solemnly, but indifferently, suppressed all the hatred in his heart, swallowing it all down. Let them brew in his heart, waiting for the moment they can explode. Before it could be exploded, Jun Mo Xie would absolutely not let anyone else see it, that he had such an intense and strong vindictive mentality. Currently, Jun Mo Xie's mind was like a wolf king prowling on a large green pasture, silently waiting for the most suitable moment for striking to arrive. Before that moment approached, he would never ever reveal his fangs. Let's go. To my place. Let us discuss about what to do next. Jun Mo Xie leapt up, lightly dusting himself. He smiled peacefully, as if nothing had just happened. But all the beast kings who heard his sentence felt a chill run down their spines. As if they could already see mountains of dead bodies, oceans of blood that was going to churn out from the hands of this youth. But this was the innate instinct of Xian beasts. The instinct to detect danger. An instinct that humans were not equipped with. How did it turn out like this? They are basically bullying us. We shouldn't have let those bastards leave unscathed even if we had to risk it all. We are beasts. But they are all worse than beasts. In Jun Mo Xie's hall, Saint Emperor Lu couldn't help but holler in fury after learning of what Tian Fa had experienced in these years from Long Crane. Slaving away for almost 400 years, only in exchange for complete betrayal. This was something that no one could accept. If Saint Emperor Lu's original cultivation was still around, it was highly likely that he would have stormed his way over to the headquarters of the Three Holy Lands to seek justice. Long Crane and the rest lowered their heads and stood at attention, afraid to make a single noise. What about Xue Yan? Where is she now? How much of her injuries have she recovered from? Saint Emperor Lu asked coldly. Xue Yan has been making good progress. Currently, she has recovered to a level, about a level 8 Xian beast. But she will still need quite some time to fully recover all of her powers. Jun Mo Xie replied. Xue Yan, she was reduced to her original form? Saint Emperor Lu looked at him in shock. He really did not dare to believe what he had just heard. Suddenly, he slammed the table. The sturdy stone table was turned into powder. Aside from going back on their words, the Three Holy Lands still dared to go this far. I swear that I will not let this matter go. The other 8 Saint Kings were also extremely infuriated. Other people may not know, but how could they not? Mei Xue Yan, she was the only living descendant of the bloodline Tian Fa's ancestor Saint Emperor Mei had left behind. The only royal blood in the entire Tian Fa forest. The greatest secret of Tian Fa forest. Of all the beasts in Tian Fa, no matter how high their cultivation reached, even if they attained the realm of Saint Emperor, they could only be addressed as Beast King. Only the descendants of the bloodline of Saint Emperor Mei had the rights to be called Lord of Tian Fa. If Mei Xue Yan had really died back then all 9 of them could not imagine how it would all unfold. If that ancestor suddenly came of the secret chamber of Tian Fa in a fit of anger, calling it a calamity would be an understatement of what would follow. After a long while, they finally calmed down. They asked Jun Mo Xie. Little Jun, you are Xue Yan's husband. Do you have any plans? Jun Mo Xie had already knew. This Saint Emperor Lu, chasing wind deer. And these 8 senior beast kings, the current Crane Saint King Hazy Crane, Lion Saint King Breaking Stone, Monkey Saint King Brave Monkey, Snake Saint King Innocuous Snake, Panther Saint King Unusual Bun, Tiger Saint King Reckless Tiger, Bear Saint King Thunder Bear, and Wolf Saint King Wind Wolf. These 9 people were the big shots whose reputations shook the whole of Xian. My plans can be discussed at a later time. But what is most important right now is what plans do the 9 of you seniors have? Jun Mo Xie paused for a while without giving an answer. Instead, he returned it with a question. And although it was not spelt out in the open, everyone understood that Jun Mo Xie was asking these 9 seniors what position they considered themselves to be in. There was no second sun in the sky. There was no second emperor in a country. Even for Xian beasts. There was no doubt that the return of these 9 people would greatly help Tian Fa. But along with it was a division of the higher powers. there was a major issue in even having two kings in most species. In the past few hundred years, Tian Fa had developed an extremely strict management system. The newly appointed Beast King would have the irrefutable, supreme authority of their own species. But now that the senior Beast Kings came out of seclusion, this was a significant blow to the power system. This issue of position must be resolved immediately. Otherwise, it would lead to a long-lasting disaster of internal crisis. To fight the enemies outside, you had to first resolve all internal conflicts. Jun Mo Xie was about to embark on his revenge. Of course, he did not wish to discover internal conflicts in his own camp. So the first thing he had to do was resolve this potential crisis. Asking us on what plans we have. The few of us old guys have all suffered great injuries. We will not be around for long. Even if we wish to lead the beasts again, we are lacking in the strength to do so. Deer Chasing Wind laughed bitterly and said, "The 9 of us already discussed this earlier. We will spend the rest of our lives aiding our own species. But if there is any battle, it must be the 9 of us old men to go out there first. We may no longer be as strong as we were, but we are still capable of taking down an enemy of the same level as us. After that, none of the Beast Kings are allowed to recklessly go onto the field. This is the only request we have." The other 8 Saint King nodded their heads. Jun Mo Xie, Long Crane, and the other Beast Kings were greatly relieved when they heard this. With Deer Chasing Wind as representative, purposely saying all these, it was the equivalent of an official handing over of powers between the Beast Kings. Mo Xie and the Beast King are completely touched by the loyalty of all the seniors here. But there is one matter that baffles me, and I'd like to seek seniors' help in understanding it. Jun Mo Xie frowned before continuing. Senior Lu, back when the 9 of you entered the mist, the lowest cultivation level was that of a Saint King. But in these 300 over years, the legacy of Xian beasts have only reached the level of a spirit Xian. The only exception is Xue Yan, who was a venerable at most. What is the reason behind this? It couldn't be that Long Crane, Big Bear and the rest did not work hard enough, right? An extremely angered look appeared upon Deer Chasing Wind's face once again. Isn't it all part of the ploy of those bastards? Since ancient times, it was Tian Fa's tradition to only pass the real secret techniques to the newly appointed Beast King when they were handing the baton over. It had always been by word of mouth. But that time, we barely had time to impart it and got tricked into entering the mist. Big Bear, Long Crane, and the rest naturally would not have inherited the techniques that they should have as Beast Kings. How could they become strong? Little May was able to reach venerable level only because she was a natural talent. It's a pity that she was reverted back to her original form. Why were we so silly back then? To believe in the fancy words of those bastards. I see. Jun Mo Xie and Long Crane came to realization. No wonder this generation of Tian Fa Beast Kings were so weak. The root of the problem laid here. Luckily, you popped out at the crucial timing. Otherwise, if they plundered the entire Tian Fa when we weren't around, then Tian Fa forest will really be done for good. How could we face all the ancestors of Tian Fa before us in the netherworld? Deer Chasing Wind said. He seemed even more pleased with Jun Mo Xie. You all have suffered great injuries and will not be around for long. Is it all right if I take a look? Jun Mo Xie asked hesitantly. There's no harm in letting you take a look, but this is something that cannot be cured. We have long looked past life and death. But if we can choose not to die, who wouldn't? Furthermore, now that Tian Fa has so many worries, If this bunch of old guys who served as the final barrier are gone, it's difficult with just these few juniors. Deer Chasing Wind looked at Long Crane and the other beast kings with guilt and worry. Stretching his arm out without bearing much hope, he said, "The past 375 years, the seal has been eating away at us incessantly. Coupled with the impacts from that lunatic 9 nether 14th young master, our internal organs are on the verge of collapsing, and our energy is completely exhausted. It's hard for us to last long, and even mentally, we are on the verge of breaking down any moment. Other than waiting for death, what hope can the current US have? Saint Emperor Lu's tone got more and more sorrowful as he spoke, but towards the end, he seemed to be on the verge of crying. But he suddenly exclaimed. He looked at Jun Mo Xie in complete disbelief, his entire body trembling. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 827. For Xue Yan. Through his sharp senses, he could distinctly feel a surge of mysterious energy coming from the 2 fingers Jun Mo Xie had placed on his wrist, entering his body and circulating around his meridians. Although it had only circulated once, he distinctly felt his meridians and physical body, which were on the verge of exhaustion, vaguely showing signs of recovery. Over 300 years of excessive output had caused his body to be like that of a 10,000-year-old aged tree. It had already reached the limit of its age, and although it may look alive on the outside, the insides were thoroughly decayed with age. The only thing he could do was to slowly wait for his time and eventually disappear from existence. But this indescribable, miraculous energy had suddenly caused his old and exhausted body to vaguely show signs of vitality and give an unexpected chance of recovery. Just like a warm spring breeze that had suddenly blown over barren lands. Although it did not actually revive, but as long as this spring breeze continued, or even brought rain, then that barren land would become a green pasture sooner or later. The situation is indeed quite serious. However, it has yet to reach a point of no return. Jun Mo Xie retracted his hands, a glint in his eyes as he said, "I will specially concoct a few Dan pills for you guys later. First recuperate for a period of time until the depleted vitality grows again. Then take another type of pill to harmonize the damages in your bodies. After taking care this continuously for a year, I believe the so-called threat in your bodies will completely vanish. When that time comes, with all these years of deep accumulation by you seniors, aside from utterly recovering your strength, it will allow you to advance even more. Actually, the greatest strain on your bodies is that the strength of your Xian cores was excessively drained to the point it has withered. It's actually not a very big problem." Jun Mo Xie briefly summarized. Completely recover? And advance even more? Not a very big problem? Deer Chasing Wind was completely shocked. Withering of the Xian core. This was the end of the road for Xian beasts. And it was actually not a big problem? But he was overwhelmed by a wave of elation. Although he still didn't quite understand, he developed an unexplainable confidence in that miraculous energy of Jun Mo Xie's. To be able to recover the health of their bodies and extend their lifespan, it was already extremely delightful. But from what Jun Mo Xie was implying, they would even be able to recover their strength? And possibly make advancements. Yes. As long as you fully follow the recuperation method I designed, with your foundations and the accumulation of these years, you will absolutely be able to level up. The past 375 years have taken a lot from you guys. But at the same time, it caused you guys to practice even harder than anyone else. Although most of the strength cultivated was used up, but there is one outcome that cannot be erased. Your meridians had been greatly expanded along with these 300 years of bitter cultivation. The seal might have constantly taken away the fruits of your labor, but it cannot cause your meridians to change. Thus, once you have recovered the cultivation that you should have, when you guys cultivate again, it will definitely be easier and have greater results. Without a doubt, within an extremely short time, you will not only recover and replenish all the strength that has been lost, but also make advancements. But there is a prerequisite. And that is that all you seniors have no problems with your bodies. Jun Mo Xie smiled. This small investment was worth it. Any one of these 9 people was a strong expert, Saint King or above. And fate and standpoint had tied them to Jun Mo Xie. At the same time they accepted him, Jun Mo Xie had naturally also accepted them. But Jun Mo Xie was still a little selfish. With his current capabilities, if he was willing to use the primal chaos purple chi to treat the injuries of these senior beast kings, they would recover even more quickly, and the effects would also be better. But the reason why he had not done so was not because he was wary, but because time waited for no man, and Jun Mo Xie did not have any more time as now. With the strength of these 9 beast kings, treating each of them would take up 4 to 5 days. And although it was a relatively short period of over 40 days, but the Dongfang family outside would not be able to wait that long anymore. Perhaps all the seniors can return back to their own species first to recuperate and also use this period of time to conduct the imparting of skills to beast kings to raise the current strength of Tian Fa as quickly as possible. I'd also like to request for Wolf King to temporarily accompany me. I will concoct the suitable pills at the soonest time and trouble Wolf King to help me deliver them. Besides, during this period of time, I will need to head out once. A faint cold glint flashed across Jun Mo Xie's eye. I have some matters that I need to resolve as quickly as possible. The reason why young Master Jun had picked the Wolf Saint King to accompany him was because during these 300 years, the wolf race had completely declined. Even if the Wolf Saint King wished to hand over his skills, he wouldn't find a suitable person now. Is that matter urgent? Do you need help? Deer Chasing Wind stood up. His heart that had given up had been revived. He felt like he had recovered the energy to live on. No need. I only need Crane King and Eagle King to stay behind. Keep in contact with the Xian beasts left behind in major families, and bring back news as soon as possible. Jun Mo Xie lowered his voice and added, "See to this with the fastest speed." Understood. Long Crane and Falcon King instantly obeyed and dispatched the news. The numerous level 9 peak flying Xian beasts outside instantly took to the skies and entered the clouds. When Jun Mo Xie was leaving, Deer Chasing Wind suddenly called out to him. Then, with a little awkwardness to raise the topic, opening and closing his mouth several times, he said, "Jun Mo Xie, maybe you have many magical capabilities, living for almost 1,000 years. But I have never seen someone who can compare to you in terms of potential. There is one matter. Xue Yan is definitely recuperating under your arrangements. I just want to say." His voice was hesitant, not because he was ill at ease, but because he really did not know how to put it, to the point he was sweating a little from anxiety. Jun Mo Xie wasn't irascible, quietly listening, not getting impatient at all. You must have assumed that the moment Xian beasts take up a human form, they would be old things of hundreds of years of age. But this type of perception is wrong. In fact, before Xian beasts take on a human form, if we do not break through successfully, we will meet our death. But after we take human form, it is the equivalent of the restarting of our lives. In other words, we count our age from the day we take form. Furthermore, Comparing the lifespans of us after taking form to the lifespan of humans. 10 years for us is only 1 year for you guys, putting it this way. Do you understand? So. Xue Yan, she is actually just a little girl. Deer Chasing Wind stammered, so drained that his forehead was covered in sweat. Explaining this sort of peculiar matter was beyond his capabilities. I understand. A warm smile spread across Jun Mo Xie's face. Deer Chasing Wind was this anxious not because he was afraid of him or because he had a request to make of him, but because everything was for Xue Yan. For the sake of Xue Yan's happiness. Like the fears and concerns of a senior watching his female junior getting married. Worrying that she may be bullied by her husband's family or looked down upon. Etc. Etc. To have a senior like this. Jun Mo Xie was extremely happy for Mei Xue Yan. And, the bonding, of Xian beast and human, in all of history, this. Deer Chasing Wind had just heaved a sigh of relief. But he had already began stuttering again. This time. Even he did not know what he should be saying. What he was saying, because this question had always been the taboo of the continent, so the more he said, the more he realized he couldn't explain. But Jun Mo Xie clearly understood what he meant. Jun Mo Xie nodded his head and spoke seriously. I understand what you mean. Xue Yan is my wife. She is throughout this entire life. Even if she is unable to return to her human form forever, I will still marry her in her original form. He blinked and smiled. Perhaps you guys still don't know, but my reputation in the entire continent is already extremely bad. Marrying a Xian beast as my wife is merely just a gossip to me. It can't be counted as a scandal. Long Crane and the rest, who were aware of the situation, broke out in uncontrollable laughter. Deer Chasing Wind heaved a loud sigh of relief and said, That's good, repeatedly. To the 9 of them, Xue Yan's happiness was the utmost important matter. Because if Xue Yan suffered any indignation, all of them would not feel good. Furthermore, these 9 people genuinely adored and cherished Mei Xue Yan, so they would not allow her to suffer any sort of grievances. Jun Mo Xie was a little gloomy. Deer Chasing Wind's last sentence was a little, why did you say, that's good? That's good, when you heard that my reputation was bad, having a bad reputation, is that a glorious thing? After making arrangements at home, without a moment's delay, Jun Mo Xie headed over to the region near the borders of Tian Fa forest at the fastest speed. The region where the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops were at. Solitary Falcon and Feng Wanyun had whipped this place into shape thoroughly. The sounds of practicing and howling from the inside could be heard from far away. The atmosphere here seemed even more dangerous than the deepest parts of Tian Fa forest. Day and night. Cruel practice without a single break had led to everyone's strength to level up at an alarming rate. Members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer had only been in this new base for a couple of days. But their strength had already made significant progress. Without saying anything, Jun Mo Xie entered the secret chambers directly and summoned all the leaders of the troops to come in and report the latest progress. It wasn't long before Solitary Falcon, Feng Wanyun, Bailey Luo Yun, and Leng Ao had gathered. Solitary Falcon and Feng Wanyun were in charge of the training for the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, while Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao were in charge of training assassination skills, training the strongest assassins. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 828. Rocketing Strength. How is the current situation? Are we making smooth progress? Jun Mo Xie asked. Solitary Falcon smirked. an unusually proud expression on his face. The progress has been rather smooth. The 300 members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer have all reached the realm of Sky Xian. Another 5 of them had already attained the peak level of a Sky Xian. As long as they maintain a tranquil mind, they will be able to break through to Spirit Xian any moment. How can it be this fast? This unexpected good news left Jun Mo Xie astonished. It really was too unexpected. To be honest, all these people making up the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer were all old, retired soldiers. These people had unserving determination and an unyielding fighting spirit that got stronger when they encountered stronger opponents. But none of them truly stood out in terms of their aptitude, and they had gone long past the ideal age range for cultivating Xian Qi. Aside from their unyielding will to fight, the main reason why they could achieve such great achievement lay in the great effects of the pills Jun Mo Xie had provided. The extremely difficult training they had undergone was also an extremely important segment. Almost every day was filled with exhausting training filled with the fear of death. Only under this sort of bloody training, where they had to constantly struggle on between the borders of life and death, could the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer attain their achievements today. But even then, Jun Mo Xie never thought that they would be able to cultivate this rapidly. Looks like even you underestimated the effects of the bone-tempering pill. Solitary Falcon glanced at him and continued. Although the heaven-defying effects of the bone-tempering pill mainly have effect on the bone structure. But you must not forget that most of the meridians circulate around the skeleton. The more coordinated the bone structure becomes, the meridians will also adjust and change accordingly. They naturally complement each other. Even Feng Wanyan's stoic face revealed a hint of smile. After everyone took the pill and underwent intense training that confronted death every day, every single one of them was juicing out the greatest potential in their body. At the same time as they went through hardships, they completed rounds and rounds of thorough change in their meridians. This way, their bodies experienced metamorphic effects through a different method. Although the natural endowments that used to hinder them from advancing in the past were not completely eradicated, they have been greatly reduced. If you check on their current aptitude, most of them are mid-tier and above, and some have even achieved superior levels. Thus is it not by chance that they attained their current achievements. Then that's great. They were originally restricted by their aptitudes, limiting the extent of their achievements. Now that they unexpectedly underwent a change in their bodies, allowing them to become more malleable, it really is good news. Great news. Jun Mo Xie was extremely elated. This sort of outcome was a surprise beyond his expectations. What about you guys? How is the progress? Jun Mo Xie looked over to Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao. Earlier, we had picked out a total of 1,000 children. When we were back in Tianxiang, we had eliminated 300 of them. After going through this period of training, we eliminated a total of 695 people. Currently, there is only a total of 5 people who are worthy of becoming assassins. After including Tian, Can and DK, there is a total of 7. Leng Ao paused for a while before adding. Asides, out of the few people Luo Yun selected from Tianxiang, 3 of them were rendered useless during a mission, so they're also considered eliminated. There are 3 more, and after adding them and the 2 of us, there is only a total of 12 people who have completely fulfilled the basic requirements of becoming an assassin. Jun Mo Xie nodded his head and said, 12 people. In other words, after excluding the 2 of you and Tian Can, DK, there are 8 who were chosen. Not bad. Not bad. To be able to pick out 8 from 1,000, this sort of probability is already not bad. Looks like the 2 of you have a good hand at picking assassins. I am extremely satisfied with this sort of results. Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao exchanged looks, clearly surprised. The reason why Leng Ao had hesitated when reporting was precisely because the number of people was too little. The two of them were extremely strict and would rather have nothing than go for shoddy options. After a thorough search, only these few could make the cut. They had thought Jun Mo Xie would throw a fit because there was too little people. After all, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer did not have a single elimination in their members. But they did not think that young Master Jun would be pleased with this sort of outcome. Although Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao were prodigies of their generation, with exceptional talent and outstanding capabilities, and Leng Ao hailed as a disciple from the supreme assassin Chu Chi Han, but they were still limited by their experience, and could not understand the logic of the ordinary impedition of life. How many truly excellent assassins were there in the whole of Xian continent? Only big families who had undergone all the vicissitudes of life have and owned the method for the so-called nurturing of assassins would have won. Regardless of family, nature, personality, habits, temperament, aptitude, to find someone who fulfilled the requirement of every single aspect was extremely rare. Not even one in hundreds. One was not considered an assassin just because they knew how to kill. The requirements for becoming a qualified assassin was more difficult than picking top scholars in the imperial examinations. Both Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao were naturally gifted with exceptional cultivation and were even more sharp-eyed when it came to picking talents, so they would be even more harsh in their judgment. But those young successors who managed to catch their eye would definitely be outstanding and promising. It was already a relatively high ratio to be able to get 8 out of 1,000. Young Master Jun was an outstanding assassin himself, so he knew about the difficulty in finding people with the aptitude to become assassins. How could he not be satisfied with such results? These 8 people, including the two of you, Tian Can and DK, will still need to go through another round of refining and elimination. Jun Mo Xie slowly said. It is never an easy task to becoming an exceptional assassin. He slowly said. Do you guys know what exactly is an assassin? What does it mean to be a true assassin? Solitary Falcon and Feng Wanyun broke out in uncontrollable laughter upon hearing this. But at the same time, Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao turned serious. These two prodigal youths who were born assassins had understood the deep significance behind this sentence. This was not only a test by Jun Mo Xie, but an extremely important lesson for the both of them. So both of them knew that this was not a simple question, but a type of foreshadowing. Because Jun Mo Xie would not let them answer it. Third young master. You are an amateur when it comes to this. From the way I see it, all the Xian cultivators in the whole of the continent are all assassins. Feng Wanyun and I can be considered the talents of the world of assassins. Solitary Falcon laughed and said confidently, his long hair swaying about. But after he had finished his sentence, he noticed that Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao looking at him weirdly. It was a look of contempt and pity, as if they were looking at something ridiculous, watching a clown. What's wrong with you two? Why are the both of you looking at me like that? Are the two of you rascals trying to rebel? Solitary Falcon couldn't help but feel infuriated. But afterwards, he began to feel sheepish under the stare of the two assassins. Did I say something wrong? Didn't I say it pretty well? From the way I see it, there is only a total of 2 people who are qualified assassins in the whole of the Xian continent. Jun Mo Xie looked at Leng Ao and smiled. One of them is your master, the supreme assassin Chu Chi Han. And the other would be yourself. Leng Ao said in admiration. This sentence was no flattery, but he had recalled what his master had said. It was practically the same as what Jun Mo Xie had just said. When Chu Chi Hun had returned from the battle at Blizzard's Silver City, he said to his disciple, "There is only one real assassin in this world. And it is the person you are currently following. Because even your master does not hold a candle compared to him. I am so much inferior to him." Back then, Lang Ao asked, "Why does master have such high praise towards this person? I never noticed any potential of being an assassin from him." Chu Chi Hun gave a cold laugh and replied, "If you could see it, then is he still worthy of being an assassin? What more? The king of all assassins? Rascal, you are still green in terms of experience." Back then, Chu Chi Hun had only a couple of sentences before departing. "You can try observing closely. He will naturally be on his guard at any moment. Even when he is in the safest place, it will be the same. And this guarded state is not intentional, but out of habit, so habitual to the point that he couldn't change it. Other than experts who are able to freeze time, no one would be capable of pulling a sneak attack on him. One more thing. He is capable of attacking at any moment. Similarly, this is out a habit, a natural habit. A habit that he can't avoid. This is only one of his talents. Experience it well." These two types of opposite acts, attacking and defending, appearing on the same person at the same time, and constantly equipped with both skills. This sort of saying was not only ridiculous, but also even more impossible. But why did Master say such a thing? Hence from then on, as long as he had the chance of interacting with Jun Mo Xie, Lang Ao would observe carefully. After observing for a great deal, Lang Ao found out, to his horror, that what his master said was actually the truth. Two clearly opposing types of action had really been combined perfectly, responding perfectly at any moment, assimilating into the capabilities of his body alone. What sort of miracle was this? No wonder when Jun Mo Xie was still weak in his strength, even when he used his killing blow, he still couldn't assassinate him. Jun Mo Xie smiled. Some people think that an assassin should always keep an upright posture, standing like a javelin, and every single action must have strict discipline. Most of the time, they will forever be expressionless and be surrounded by aura of killing. Their eyes constantly eyeing others like an hawk. That assassins will have no friendship, no love/relationship, no kinship and no friends, because all of these will become their hindrance. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 829. The beginning of a bloody revenge. I believe that most people in this world would think that only people who are like this are worthy of being called assassins. Jun Mo Xie chuckled in an odd tone. In their eyes, if an assassin had any other image, they would be surprised instead. They'd question, this. Can this still be considered an assassin? Jun Mo Xie had asked that last question in an extremely exaggerated tone of surprise. All those who assume this are all fools. Complete fools. Lang Ao couldn't help but be amused by him, giggling. How could a genuine assassin behave so retardedly? If they were really like that, aren't they just openly telling everyone, "I am an assassin. Hurry up and be wary of me. Come and catch me"? Yes. People who assume this are all fools. All these so-called assassins in their eyes are just trying to act cool. And that sort of acting cool like they are fools. Fools who are using their lives to act cool. Jun Mo Xie smiled and said, "But it cannot be denied that it is precisely because there are such stubborn fools who are full of such judgment that real assassins can be flawlessly concealed and hidden, and have greater success rates when it comes to missions. So we must thank those fools. All those adorable fools." Jun Mo Xie glanced at Solitary Falcon and said with pity. With regards to some people who think that you are an assassin just because you are capable of killing, sigh. It's not even worth mentioning. Solitary Falcon instantly turned red from embarrassment. And unconvinced, he shouted, "Then you tell me. What type of person can be considered an assassin?" A real assassin is one who is able to complete their mission under all sorts of circumstances. When an assassin strikes, the aim is to kill. There has never been and will never be any exceptions. Jun Mo Xie's face turned serious as he said slowly. We often say, if you don't kill in one hit, retreat. This is the style of a real assassin. But the essence of this saying is also extremely wrong. If you don't kill in one hit, retreating far away, that is an assassinator. But not an assassin. Then, what about an assassin? Leng Ao was starting to be confused at this point in time by his words. An assassin should be absolutely killing in one strike and retreat far away. Jun Mo Xie said. The martial arts of an assassin need not necessarily be high. It can even be way lower than the target of the mission. But when it comes to seizing the opportunity, they must be extremely precise and accurate. As long as they seize the opportunity well, a Jade Xian can even withdraw unscathed after assassinating a Spirit Xian. This is opportunity. Choosing the opportunity to strike. Jun Mo Xie raised his brows and looked at Solitary Falcon and said, Old Falcon, you need not be so unconvinced. With your current skills, if you are compared to the king of assassins Chu Chi Hun, both of you can be said to be neck to neck. But are you fight face to face? We may not be able to determine the winner and loser even if the two of you go at it for 3 days and 3 nights. But I dare to bet that if Chu Chi Hun really wanted to kill you, 1 strike is sufficient. Solitary Falcon wore a somewhat awkward expression, mumbling, I don't believe it. Although I may not be comparable to those peak experts. But I'm not that poor to be killed in 1 single strike by that asshole Chu Chi Hun. I wouldn't believe it even if you beat me to death. Why can't you believe it? I believe it. Because I can settle you in 1 strike. Feng Wanyun said with a stoic face. You sleep with me in the same house every night. And I can kill you thousands of times every night. Especially when your snoring managed to knock even the Xian beast silly. I believe as long as Chu Chi Hun manages to find similar opportunities to strike, it's not that strange to end you in 1 strike. This is probably the choosing the right opportunity that Mo Xie was talking about. Everyone broke out in laughter, already at ease. That was a matter of fact. There was nothing too profound in the world. As long as your weakness was caught, even if you were the strongest existence, you could possibly still be killed by someone who did not know any martial arts. So, all of you must remember at all times, to become a qualified assassin is absolutely not an easy task. Jun Mo Xie looked at Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao as he spoke. In the next couple of days, I will arrange for an assassination mission for you guys. An assassin must be grinded amidst fresh blood and human lives. Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao's spirits rose. A passionate glint revealed in their eyes. That's right. An assassin who had not gone through refinement in fresh blood. What sort of assassin was that? Even if they undergo the strictest supervisions in their training, it would still be the same. Oh right. What is the current levels of those 8 little fellows? Jun Mo Xie suddenly asked. After taking 2 steps. The 6 people excluding Tian, Can and DK have reached the level of an Earth Xian. Because they all had some sort of relatively strong foundation in martial arts, they were faster in their advancements. As to Tian, Can and DK, The both of them have also reached the levels of a Jade Xian peak. A worried and concerned expression appeared across Lang Ao's face. Tian Can and DK are unimaginably harsh with their own training. If others were training with their bodies, then the two of them are using their lives to train themselves. The level of cruelty of their training, even Luo Yun and I, do not dare to imagine. Jun Mo Xie lightly exhaled a breath of air, suddenly recalling the scenarios of the training he had undergone in his previous life. As if he saw that obstinate youth who had practically trained every day to the point that he did not even have the strength to move his fingers. He couldn't help but sigh as he said, "If you are unable to put yourself on the verge of life and death anytime, anywhere, then how can you become a top assassin that shocks the world?" These assassin youths do not require the use of pills yet. Temporarily. It shall be postponed. Jun Mo Xie lifted his head to look at Solitary Falcon. But the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer members have already fulfilled the requirements. Call of them here. Give all of them 2 days to prepare themselves. Use the pill and level up. After that, we have great matters to do immediately. But using the Vitality Linkage Pill, Vitality Congregation Pill, and Heaven Vitality Pill won't require 2 days? Solitary Falcon said in surprise. Not only these 3 types. This time, everyone shall get 2 chances of upgrading. Jun Mo Xie smiled and looked at Solitary Falcon and Feng Wanyun as he said, "Not only them. This time, even the 2 of you can also make enhancements. I'd estimate that after this round of enhancing, you'd reach the level of a 2nd level venerable at the very least." Instantly, Solitary Falcon, Feng Wanyun, Bailey Luo Yun, and Lang Ao eyes widened in shock. What? How could there be something this good? Instantly, Bailey Luo Yun and Lang Ao were extremely jealous. They only regretted that their advancement was too slow, after using the 3 great pills the last time. They had only managed to reach the level of a spirit Xian. Looked like this time, they'd be left behind by yet another level again. They did not think that this sort of achievement was considered a terrifying achievement that was unheard of for their age. They envied Solitary Falcon and Feng Wanyun, but it was the same for Solitary Falcon and Feng Wanyun. To be able to meet Jun Mo Xie at such a young age. They were really fecking lucky. If we had met little Jun at this age, we'd probably be saint-leveled experts by now, or perhaps even higher. In the following 2 days, the flight-type Xian beasts brought the news of the respective families and their situation. This allowed Jun Mo Xie to understand what was happening outside and at the same time heave a sigh of relief. Although these few families had fallen into a crisis, but their safety was still not a worry temporarily. However, if this sort of situation was allowed to continue developing like this, these few families might really be done for. But right now it's still not too bad. Not too late. Jun Mo Xie quickly took the time to concoct a furnace of pills for healing injuries and also included specific instructions on how to use it and things to take note. He allowed the Wolf Saint King Whistling Wind to bring it back to Tian Fa Forest. Then after that, he focused on his own recuperation. 2 days later, the place was handed over to Jun Wu Yi and his wife, allowing them to continue their unfinished undertaking. While Jun Mo Xie secretly exited the Tian Fa forest, bringing along with the new big group of people who had undergone metamorphic changes in their capabilities. 2 continuous enhancements. The exponential growth in strength allowed members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer to have gone through extreme changes. After using the Vitality Linkage Pill, Vitality Congregation Pill, and Heaven Vitality Pill, these hot-blooded men all broke through to the Spirit Xian realm. Some more insane ones had broke through right to the 3rd level. Then, After using the Boundless Pill and Extreme Heavens Pill, they had undergone another significant leap. 300 men, even the weakest, had reached the 4th level of the Spirit Xian realm. Most of them had the strength of a Spirit Xian, and even a small portion of them simply bounded to the heavens in a single leap, jumping straight to the levels above Spirit Xian. Although this batch of people had forcefully enhanced their strength and were unstable in the realms they were in, which might bring great difficulties to the growth of their strength in the future, but Jun Mo Xie couldn't care so much anymore. Because right now, he was too pressed for time. Everyone shall level up in their realms when they are in battle. If there are any more problems, then it'll have to wait till I break through again, after I can concoct better medicine and then make it up to everyone. A row of people exited from Tian Fa forest. Jun Mo Xie immediately made arrangements, splitting the troop into 9 groups. One led by Solitary Falcon to the Sikong family. One led by Feng Wanyun to the Duanmu family. As to Blizzard's Silver City, there was temporarily no need to send anyone there. The greatest team made up to 50 people would head to the Dongfang family under Jun Mo Xie's lead. With regards to the remaining 6 groups, Jun Mo Xie had merely given them one mission: stir trouble. Stir up trouble thoroughly. All the influences that belonged to the 3 holy lands on this continent. Destroy all of them completely. Conserve yourselves. Destroy all the familial influences that belongs to the 3 holy lands. But you must not let your strength be depleted. And you must not be exposed. On this foundation, do whatever you want. You can even make a hole in the sky if you want. That is no problem. The 3 holy lands had gathered all their experts together, clearly for the sake of increasing their strength. But right now, it was a huge advantage to Jun Mo Xie's favor. In this world where a Spirit Xian is easily the boss, Jun Mo Xie had released 300 experts who were Spirit Xian and above while their strongest were not around. Before the strong forces of the 3 holy lands could come out, a team like this was absolutely capable of sweeping across the entire continent. And these people were all carrying the extreme mystery pill that allowed them to make a complete and perfect recovery no matter what sort of injury they sustained. Blatantly and openly like this, Jun Mo Xie's bloody revenge had begun to unfold. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Mumble, Chapter 830. Ambush? Surveillance? So the 3 holy lands want to mess with the 3 major families on good terms with me? Then I shall attach myself to the families affiliated with the 3 holy lands until they are all crippled. Let's see who can outplay the other, and who will be done for first. You, Mo Wu Dao, want me, Jun Mo Xie, to know that I cannot afford to offend some people in this world. Well, I, Jun Mo Xie, also want you to know that there are some prices that I cannot bear. But the 3 holy lands may also be incapable of bearing them too. It's nothing more than simply massacring. In this world where I am afraid of everything, the only thing I'm unafraid of is killing people. Jun Mo Xie squinted his eyes as he watched the 8 troops disappear from sight, the corner of his lips slowly curling into a cruel smirk. He mumbled, "The 3 holy lands. Mo Wu Dao. I didn't intend to face off against you so soon. But you guys really have pushed me too far." And Zhan Mu Bai. And Saint Emperor Expert. Ha! Hee hee. Is it really that impressive? If this young master doesn't toy with you till you are destroyed, then he wouldn't be Jun Xie. Just you wait. Jun Mo Xie recalled that final line the 14th young master left before he escaped. Just you guys wait. That chilling single sentence was like an unusual curse. Even Jun Mo Xie shivered. though he was not involved. This sort of sentence was usually left behind by ruffians who had lost a fight, but it was completely different when it came out of the 9-14th young master's mouth. At least, after his one sentence, the expressions of 20 experts who were Saint Kings and above turned serious. 9-14th young master. 9-14th young master. I can only pray and hope that you'll recover your strength earlier. You are an important, necessary part of my plans. Jun Mo Xie smirked evilly as he chuckled. Chu Chi Hun had become my scapegoat so many times before. There is no meaning in letting him continue being one. Furthermore, his level is still slightly weak, and it seems like he can no longer be used. However, these 9 nether cold blades in my hands are completely capable of creating a genuine scapegoat Saint Emperor. Hee hee. Leng Ao, who had been following beside him, couldn't help but shiver at that weird smile on Jun Mo Xie's face. This sort of smile was really too sinister and perverted. Traveling swiftly the whole way, like a sharp, black sword, all 63 men quickly vanished into the radiance of spring in the continent. It was currently the end of spring and the start of summer. There were beautiful flowers everywhere. Young Master Jun could be said to have been extremely pleased and delighted the whole journey. This time, Jun Mo Xie did not use flight-type Xian beasts because in the eyes of the 3 Holy Lands, the Xian beasts of Tian Fa were already the personal possessions of Jun Mo Xie. If a large group of flight-type Xian beasts were flying in the sky, then it would be equivalent to setting a target for the 3 Holy Lands, telling them that Jun Mo Xie had come out of Tian Fa. That way, wouldn't all of them become live targets? In a blink of an eye, 4 days had passed. Just as Jun Mo Xie's group was hurrying in the dark, unusually terrible murders were happening at the same time. From different directions, dozens of families who had pledged their allegiance to the 3 Holy Lands were all wiped out. Some of them were even crucial points of contact between the 3 Holy Lands. From different places, the thick color of blood began to fill the air. Slowly, almost the entire continent noticed the blood-colored atmosphere and everyone was shocked. After another 8 days, Jun Mo Xie and the rest had already entered that forest where the Dongfang family used to hide in the past. Just that currently, the Dongfang family had already turned back to their old residence before they went into hiding. That old location deep in the forest had now become the warehouse of the Dongfang family. After crossing this forest, opposite it, was the current location of the Dongfang family. Seeing that their destination was already close, everyone was relatively fast, hastening their pace. Jun Mo Xie, who was right in front, suddenly noticed that there were unusual aura movements coming vaguely from the front. He gazed in that direction and noticed that there was small smoke rising nearby. Young Master Jun immediately halted silently. Then he gestured to those behind him. Leng Ao and the rest had sharp senses as well, and although they couldn't compete with Jun Mo Xie's sharp sight, they had also noticed that something was off. Upon seeing Jun Mo Xie's signal, they all got into action, completely concealing themselves in the blink of an eye. Jun Mo Xie released his spiritual sense with extreme caution, extending it all the way over to check it out. 4 human figures appeared, barbecuing food around a bonfire, every one of them appearing to be extremely relaxed, as if the place they were at was absolutely safe. Circling around these 4 people through his spirit sense, Jun Mo Xie immediately concluded that these 4 people all had the strength of a spirit Xian and above. Although this sort of strength was undoubtedly not much of a threat in his eyes, but in terms of the regular world where a spirit Xian was a relatively invincible existence, the combined strength of these 4 people would be enough to destroy any of the super families. And this position they were at right now was already not too far from where the Dongfang family was staying. This couldn't help but make Jun Mo Xie think a lot more. For great experts barbecuing birds to eat for no reason? At a place like this, where it is thousands of leagues away from the nearest towns, in all directions. These 4 people appearing here was a little too. If it was only one person, it could still be explained if it was a secluded person who wandered about. But this place had 4 top experts gathered here. It could not be explained by mere coincidence. If they weren't people sent here by the 3 holy lands, then who else would send them? The reason why they had gathered here was most likely to keep an eye on the Dongfang family's movements, so they could report the latest and most accurate news back to the 3 holy lands. The Dongfang family, who had returned to the pugilistic world, naturally was not weaker than by other families. Their strength was powerful enough to hold others in disdain. But when judged in terms of higher standards, they only had a few true peak-level experts. The 3 Dongfang brothers had indeed attained the levels of spirit xians and above when they had used the pills back then. But that was it. This made it hard for them to catch the eye of the strong. The only person from the Dongfang family that had managed to catch young Master Jun's attention was only old Madame Dongfang. Jun Mo Xie had felt back then that he didn't truly see what the old lady's strength was. In the battle back then, she permanently caused Xiao Xingyun, Bu Yu to get stuck at the 4th level of a spirit xian for their entire lives with her strength alone while barely sustaining any injuries herself. Old Madame Dongfang would also be a spirit xian at the very least. And at least level 6 or 7. Her strength should be on par with Solitary Falcon back then, or perhaps even higher. Probably around Shi Changzhao's level. Based on this theory, after going through 10 years of cumulative solid foundations, after using the Vitality Linkage Pill, Vitality Congregation Pill, and Heaven Vitality Pill, she would at the very least be at the realm of a level 12 Spirit Xian. It wasn't entirely impossible for her to even reach the first level of a Venerable. But right now, old Madame Dongfang must control the overall situation, not daring to have the slightest neglect. She probably didn't even have the time to sort out internal matters of the household. While the 3 Dongfang brothers handled one side, the entire Dongfang family was kept busy. With 4 such spirit xian and above experts here, although they may not be able to wipe the Dongfang family out just like that, but no single movement of the Dongfang family would be able to escape from their eyes. If there were any sudden changes, they'd probably instantly release the news and allow people outside to make arrangements accordingly to the Dongfang family's actions. Jun Mo Xie instantly figured all of this out. A chilling glint appeared in young Master Jun's eye. He lightly gestured again, making an odd signal, drawing a circle with both his pointer fingers. The meaning behind this hand signal was, "I want them captured alive." Bailey Luo Yun behind him immediately waved his hand, and a row of over 60 people immediately spread out and moved towards that place. Clearly, these 4 people had no awareness of this. In fact, since the moment they arrived here, they had not met any threat, so over time, they started to become careless. Besides, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer were experts at concealing themselves, so even if they were focused and wary, it still may not be of much use. One of the long-bearded men flipped his wild goose that was golden brown. It exuded a salivating aroma. The mission this time, although it sounds serious, but in reality, it is extremely easy. The Dongfang family is merely a worldly family with a false reputation. We walked in and out blatantly and not a single person noticed us. What a joke. Old Wang, only one word in your speech makes sense. Another person sneered. Only the worldly part makes sense. How could you forget that under the control of the three holy lands, spirit Xians are already the strongest in the worldly powers of the entire continent? Were you expecting a few venerables or saints to pop out from this Dongfang family? Another person spoke. But we mustn't speak too soon. No doubt it is impossible for a saint to appear. But it may not be the case for a venerable. A few days ago, when I was on duty and infiltrated the Dongfang family, I saw the master of the Dongfang family, old Madame Dongfang. That old madam is really not that simple. From my observations, I dare say that this old Madame Dongfang is not weaker than us in terms of strength. Perhaps she may be above us. Truly unpredictable. So what? No matter how strong she is, she wouldn't personally take on a mission, right? And what we need is information on those who take on missions. With all the people we have ambushing around the targets, dealing with the strongest would be the same as dealing with spirit Xians around the same level as the three Dongfang brothers. It's definitely more than enough. That old Wang scoffed, continuously flipping the goose that was almost cooked with his left hand. His right hand reached out to grab a pinch of salt as he slowly sprinkled it over the bird. He chuckled. Actually, this extermination of an entire family business is not that different from roasting a bird. Everything just needs to be done step by step. First, pluck all the feathers. Then the guts. Skewer it with a branch. Start the fire. Put it on the rack. Then repeatedly add various seasoning. This story will be continued to chapter 831. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.